Yo, what is going on, homies? It's your boy StumpD back for another OPTC video, and in today's video, we're continuing on with those tier lists. But in today's video, we have a one for you endgame players and sort of you mid-game players, as well as the beginners, to sort of get an idea about limit break abilities. Limit break abilities are very, very valuable abilities in the game that each character has, and each character has different abilities. When you are feeding in dupes or extra copies of characters, you can level up these abilities for free, but you can also get some tablets, majority of tablets from stuff like Treasure Map, the Treasure Map shop, and rewards. But in today's video, we're going to put all the abilities onto a tier list for you guys to see which ones you guys should be prioritizing first. Now, don't take my word for like lore, but hopefully it just helps you guys out and gives you guys some insight on what these abilities do. I'm going to break them down, put them on a tier list of the best abilities to the worst abilities in terms of value, not only for particular characters, but for you and completing content. But if you enjoy the video, belt the like button. If you're new to the channel, hit that big red subscribe button. If you're a mid to end game player and you disagree with anything that I say, please let me know in the comment section below. We can pin the comment, we can talk about it there. It's only going to help people, so please don't be afraid to voice your opinions down below. But with that said, let's dive in and let's take a look at the limit break abilities. Alright, so here we go. We've got a tier list. Best abilities, really helpful. Uncommon but helpful. Whatever. And Dookie. Dookie, these are going to be your last priority. Like, do not do these unless you are literally, like, it's the only thing left. Whatever is kind of like, yeah, it's cool, it's there, but, like, it's not something that you're going to see too much use out of, or it's, like, not very handy. Uncommon but helpful. These abilities are very good, but it's something that you don't see too much. Really helpful is, again, going to be something that's really, like, a really good ability, but something that you're probably not going to use that often. Best abilities, these are the ones you're going to use all the time. They're going to pop up as very valuable abilities, mainly for stuff like your mid-game players to clear particular pieces of content. But like I said, we'll talk about that once we get there. As you guys can see here, I do have all the abilities on the list. This is just a quick tablet here. And as I do apologize for my terrible cutout skills. I think there is one more ability that I've missed, like another one of these recovery ones, but like it's so niche that you're probably never going to worry about it anyway. So we're going to start it off with the damage reduction tablets. All of these damage reductions should be your last priority. Doesn't matter what color they are. I don't care what you say. These suck. Like, you do not need these abilities. Save these for the end, when you either pick up dupes or stuff like that. Do not waste tablets. Like, do not waste dupes leveling up these particular tablets. If you see these tablets, like, be happy because, like, you can use your copies on other abilities. But these tablets, they absolutely suck. As for the two gold tablets, these gold tablets are guaranteed levels. With the silver tablets, you're not guaranteed a level. If you feed a dupe or a same copy of a unit in, you're going to get a guaranteed level. But these tablets, they'll only give you silver tablets. So if your characters have the super tandem ability or the final tap ability, you want to prioritize these first. These abilities are the best abilities in the game. They're only available in gold tablets. So if you get a copy of a unit, please, for the love of God, level up this ability first. These abilities are insane. They give much bigger buffs to your team, especially Super Tandem. If no unit has Super Tandem and Final Tap, except for Verse, Kaido, and Yamato, but it's the same thing. But Tandem is more valuable than Final Tap, in my opinion. And then when Rush comes into play, like, Rush will sort of sit up here as well for the 9th anniversary. Moving on to the next lot of tablets, we're going to talk about sort of the generic first batch. So first of all, we've got Barrier Pen. In my opinion, out of regular abilities, Barrier Pen is the best ability in the game. For Legends, this is mainly found on shooter characters, but there are some exceptions like Super Tandem Shanks, for example. They can penetrate barriers depending on your HP threshold. Legends at level 5 will just ignore barriers no matter what, and a barrier is one of the most annoying mechanics in the game. If you guys have tried something like Garp Challenge 15, barriers are finicky. They are so freaking annoying. But with Barrier Pen, you can actually just go straight through it. With rare recruits, though, at level 5, most of the time, you do need to be above 50% HP. So just be mindful of that when you are using rare recruit characters. But for Legends, they're just going to ignore the barrier completely. And this ability saves so much time having to not worry about having to do certain taps, perfects, goods, greats, or even like in a number, like a combo. And you can just sort of get through this. Now, there are some Legends that just ignore this stuff, like Neko and Inu. You have Carrot, and you have stuff like V1 Blackbeard that can just ignore these defensive abilities. But when you don't use those characters, you're going to want to have Barrier Pen maxed out. And in my opinion, besides these two, this is the best ability in the game. The second best ability, in my opinion, is Pinch Healing. Now, Pinch Healing is very valuable and is normally found on stuff like Cerebral and Free Spirit characters. And what it does, it gives you healing based on the character's recovery whenever you hit a perfect, provided you are below a certain threshold of HP. This ability can help you survive particular turns, can save you from stuff like death damage, and is very, very powerful. Obviously, it's built around the recovery stat of the unit, which can obviously reduce it a lot, and you can have characters that can heal, and you can all do all that, but with this ability, you can reduce those characters and bring more damage dealers for your team. For mid-game players, this is definitely an ability you're going to want to level up, just like Barrier Pen, because these two abilities combined, they work exceptionally well, especially when your unit penetrates the barrier and then gives you healing, like when just by hitting a perfect. Like it's so powerful and so very, very handy for stuff like survivability. Next, we've got Hunger. Hunger is an ability you should probably prioritize because tablets are so scarce, but it's something that you don't see that often within the game. To get around Hunger, what you need to do is, it's not a turn-based debuff, it's built around eating stuff like recovery or similar slots. The only way you can get around it, besides having Hunger max. Now, the downside to Hunger is a lot of characters, especially rare recruits, they don't increase their level when you level them up. So from level 1 to 2, will still only reduce 1 bar of Hunger. But it can also give you extra attack whenever you eat a recovery orb for the next turn. So it's a really helpful ability. It's not something that is going to sort of save you most of the time, but it is something that is going to be a necessity with end game content. So if you see it on your characters, I would prioritize it because it is one of the best abilities in the game. But for a mid-game player, you're not going to see it at all. For end game players, you definitely are, and you're going to want to prioritize it. But for mid-game players, don't stress about it too much. There is no captain ability that can help you with this either, so just be mindful of that. It is one of the best abilities in the game. And helpful abilities, it's something I would definitely prioritize, but not the best ability in my opinion. Next, we've got Fear. Fear is a really helpful ability. Now, Fear has dropped off quite a lot, and what Fear does is it binds your sailor abilities. For particular characters that can get around stuff like Special Bind and Special Reverse, Fear is a very, very annoying mechanic. What it does is it stops them from getting their reverse and then you can use their special, or it stops them from removing the special bind so then you can use their special to remove the special bind on the rest of your squad. Characters like Rare Recruit King, the Mugiwara Nami off the top of my head, Karasu or Usohachi, they all have this ability, and it's something that you definitely want to prioritize, just like Hunger, because these tablets are very scarce and very hard to come across. However, nowadays, it's just a really helpful ability because a lot of characters can do stuff like special reverse removal in their captain ability or stuff like special bind. They're the two big ones that this particular ability helps out for. But when you have stuff like Despair and all that sort of stuff, it does get a little bit finicky. So I'm not going to put it as a best ability in the game nowadays, because, for example, if you're looking at removing Special Binds, you can easily just bring something like Superclass Dofi, Ace Yamato. All of those characters can just, Vivi can just remove Special Bind in their Captain ability, and for characters that remove Special Reverse, you have stuff like Treasure Map Koala, Kazuna Perispero, Verse Ace. Very, very powerful units that can just avoid that without needing these Limit Break abilities. But Fear is still very handy, and if you see it as the top, the top ability on your character, I would prioritize it because the tablets are so scarce. In saying that though, stuff like Barrier Pen and Pinch Healing will be more beneficial for mid-game players throughout their runs in the early stages of the game. As you get later down the line, these abilities, whilst they're very, very handy, especially Barrier Pen, they will drop off compared to what Fear can do. Another instance where Fear is very, very powerful is in the Garp's Challenge Enel. So it's a spot that you want. But there are a lot of free-to-play characters now that have stuff like Hunger, that have stuff like Fear, that makes these abilities a little bit less powerful as they have become a lot more common. Next, we've got Crit. Crit can be really helpful. It's a very powerful ability that allows you to do a lot of extra damage. When a character has a 100% chance to critical hit, it adds something like 10% of their attack onto onto the attack. It's not something I would prioritize though, but it is really helpful for getting you across the line, especially when you're looking at endgame content. Some local sea monster teams, they rely on stuff like Crit, Shellstown at Grand Voyage, and this is talking really endgame, by the way. They rely on this critical damage to actually get them across the line. For an early to mid-game player, you're never going to need crit. For 90% of the content, you're not going to worry about critical hit. It's just something that's nice, and it's just something that's handy. Next, we've got this is double special activation. Double special activation is really helpful, and for some characters, it's one of the best abilities in the game. Some characters actually need their double special activation to be maxed to make the character very, very good. Honestly, if a character has this ability, I would definitely prioritize it, but I wouldn't prioritize it over something like Hunger. It's very similar to Hunger in the sense that if a unit has it, you're probably going to want to max it out. But nowadays, it's kind of just really helpful for that particular unit. So if you see it, I would max it. But if you have Hunger and, say, double special together, I would probably max the Hunger on... Actually, I'd probably max the double special activation, to be honest with you. These abilities, like I said, they're very rare to pick up tablets for. And there's something that you definitely want to prioritize just moving forward. I love that I changed that just like... Well, I just convinced myself that double special was so valuable. Honestly, it really is. It really is. Next, you've got the special charge at the start of the quest. This is another really helpful ability, and for some characters, it's very, very good for stuff like speed farming content. It's very, very good for getting cooldowns. But it just makes your quality of life when playing a lot better. You don't need it, but it's something that is definitely going to help out, especially for newer game players, early game players. This, you're never going to really worry about too much. Just having that ability is quite nice. Next, you've got this recovery... turns recovery into damage, I think it is, or it reduces... I think this one is the reduced recovery. We still don't have that, like a tablet for that other one, and then for bleed and stuff, or paralysis. But this particular ability basically reduces your recovery drastically. It can be like a 90% recovery debuff, and if you do any healing-based specials or pinch healing or anything like that, it is going to reduce it. It's kind of whatever, like... Whenever you kind of see this, it's like 99 turns or something stupid, and like you're just never really gonna want to like worry about getting around it. So like it's whatever. If a character has it, it's like cool. Like yeah, cool, but yeah, mad. Next, we've got Shipbind. Shipbind is super helpful when it's there, but it's just never there. The only time I can really think of is local sea monster. Shipbind is very, very handy, and at that point, it is something you do want to prioritize. But it is so uncommon for a mid to end game player that I really wouldn't worry about it too much, if I'm honest. You can prioritize it for the same argument as of Hunger and double special activation, but these abilities affect your team a lot more than what Shipbind does. Shipbind basically just takes your ship out of play. Ships are very good because they can give you more attack and stuff like that within the quest, or their special can be used to get around stuff like paralysis, namely the Aura Jackson. So Shipbind can be very valuable, but like there's not a lot of content that needs it, and when it is needed, that's sort of when you look at what unit you're going to need to put on. So for example, there is Treasure Map Frankie, off the top of my head, who can remove Shipbinds, and if you need Shipbind, you're just going to put that character on the team or find a way to bring that free-to-play character in. Not something I would recommend maxing, and honestly, for an early game player, just like Fear, if you see barrier pen or pinch healing on the same character that has something like Shipbind, I would prioritize that first. Next, we've got the ability of the Super Ore Block. Now, the Super Ore Block removal is kind of whatever. Characters like Super Tandem Nami and Super Type Vivi, off the top of my head, have this particular ability. There is a mechanic in the game that gives you a super lock on your orbs, and whatever your orb is locked in, depending on what you have to do. So sometimes it's you have to hit 3 goods, sometimes it's hit 2 perfects, and then it'll remove the orb block, and then you can get your orb roll back. If you get something like a super block orb, and then they super lock it, it is very annoying. However, there are characters in the game like Super Tandem Kid, Kazuna Fire Tank Pirates, that actually give you this mechanic, and it can be counterintuitive for your units to have this when you are trying to use that mechanic, especially in the forest, Hawkins Forest, the the Forests of Training Straw. This is a very prevalent mechanic, but you can use it to your advantage. So having this limit break can be counterintuitive, and it is the most whatever ability in the game. Honestly, it's so borderline dookie that, like, I kind of want to put it there, but, like, I just can't justify that. Next, we've got the Limit Special Limit Break. This is another very helpful limit break, but it's so uncommon that you're really never going to level it up. Characters like Superclass Odin and Kazuna Rare Recruit Brook with his limit break expansion are really the only characters that I can think of that have this ability. And this ability is so scarce that you don't really have to worry about it too much. It is quite prevalent in one of the new Legend Jack actually has it as well. But in the new turtle farming event with the Blue Flame Marco, this particular ability is in the game, but it's something that you don't even need to worry about. And a lot of teams were just being like, all right, sweet, I can only use one special for 3 turns. I'm just going to deal with that. So this is a really, like, helpful ability to have, but it's so uncommon, or you don't need to remove it within this part of the game right now, that it is just sort of, it's kind of just there. It's very similar to Shipbind in that regard, but honestly, Shipbind is something that has been in the game a little bit longer to be a little bit more effective for some of that endgame content. Next, we've got the pretty tablets, that I like to call them, because I already had these on save. I didn't have to crop them. Next, we've got Slotbind. Slotbind is really helpful. I don't think Slotbind is up there as one of the best abilities in the game anymore. But what it does is basically it removes your slot for a particular amount of turns. It adds like this sort of like gray shield, and it's in stuff like Dofi 2 for sort of like your endgame content. It's very handy to have, but nowadays with the power creep and the amount of damage that you can output with just like a single character, this particular ability is just, it's really helpful. Once upon a time I would have said it was one of the best abilities in the game, but nowadays, like, we can clear content literally without orbs because we have so many different buffs that don't require having a slot. Having an orb boost and a matching orb gives you a great damage buff. However, there are characters that have switch abilities that just completely remove slot bind as well. So there are other ways to get around it, kind of like Fear nowadays, but that doesn't mean that it's a bad ability. It's just really helpful to have. But something like the Barrier Pen and Pinch Healing are going to be a much better time for you guys than using something like Slot Bind. This is literally on like one character. Next, we've got Recovery Bind. Recovery Bind is really helpful as well. I would probably say that it sits around here. For some endgame content, this is an ability that you actually need, namely Grand Voyage against Mihawk. But what this ability does is the enemy will give you a certain amount of turns of Recovery Bind, which means that you can't heal. This includes end of turn healing. This includes pinch healing. This includes ship healing. This includes character specials. So it can be a very annoying, like, buff that comes around, debuff, but it is not something that you sort of need to prioritize most of the time. Compared to sort of like this list, I would put it above stuff like your reduced special, because like you can still just sort of like stall out for specials. I would put it above crit, because survivability compared to damage in the early game is way more viable, and the crit, you can just use another special to like make your damage more. But if you know you're going to die and you can't use something like damage reduction, the healing is going to be really, really nice. Finally, we have Enrage. Enrage is very uncommon but helpful, and this ability actually got buffed. It used to just be if you took damage, you would do more damage, but now it actually removes the increased damage taken on your crew. It's helpful. It's not uncommon. It's just mid. Like, it's just something that you don't ever really need. It's just more damage output. It's nowhere near as good as crit. It's nowhere near as good as these two abilities here. And honestly, it's better than whatever, but it's sort of just at the back end of like, it's uncommon but helpful. But that's going to wrap up the ability tier list. Hopefully it helps you guys out with sort of just prioritizing some particular abilities. Whilst I do think that Barrier Pen and Pinch Healing are the best regular abilities in the game, I would probably prioritize these two on most characters. And for example, if you're a rookie player, like my rookie account, I have Usohachi. You can pull Usohachi from the rookie rare recruit tickets. I have been feeding in the dupe for Fear because it is a much harder ability to get. Yes, Barrier Pen is very, very good, but you can still use Barrier Pen at level 1, provided your HP is at a much higher threshold. Maxing this ability will mean that You can use it more readily. Like I said, with Legends, you can just ignore barriers at all. But at level 1, you just got to be above like 70% HP or something like that. So these abilities are much, much more scarce. But if you guys want to make content a lot easier for yourself, these abilities are great. A particular character I'm going to point out is the free-to-play Straw Hat Frankie. He has Barrier Pen, and you can easily max that out. But that's an ability you want to prioritize first if you only have, say, 5 copies. So that's a perfect example there. So whilst I do think these abilities are better than these abilities, actually probably something like this, I would say. Just because like Hunger is really helpful. It's not as not as prevalent. Double Special is really, really great. I'd probably put it like that, to be honest. But in terms of what I like the most, I really like these 2 abilities over these. But hopefully it helped you guys out. Hopefully you guys watched the video so you guys understand why I've done it like this. But if you skip to this point, make sure to rewind the video so you understand. But if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, do all that good stuff. Best of luck if you are a newer player, and best of luck with summoning if you guys are summoning on 9th anniversary and you're looking to sort of put dupes in to level up abilities. Best of luck there. And like I said, belt the like button, belt the subscribe button. Let me know in the comment section if you agree, if you disagree. But most importantly, wherever you guys are in this beautiful world, please remember to enjoy the rest of your day. As always, homies, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.